Welcome to the Jets UK podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andres Groves, and I'm joined by one of my co-hosts, Matthew Merrett. Matt, how are you doing this week on Texans week?
All good, excited. This is feels like a big opportunity for the Jets this week. We kind of hyped this game up a bit in our little pre-podcast chat, and I think everyone's kind of ready to see Zach back under centre and kind of ready to get into this game. So it's a big weekend all around because I'm a Chelsea fan too. So I'm going to have Chelsea v Man United just before the Jets game. So hopefully we get 2 wins from 2.
Yeah, we're going into this game. Zach's back, obviously. We'll discuss that in a bit. I mean, later on, we'll be obviously doing our preview. We'll have our chat with Euan from the Turn Up for What podcast, which is a UK-based Texans podcast. Had a good chat about where his team is, not just about this matchup. Obviously, things going into the off season. There's a lot of swirling narratives around that team, so it's always good to break it down with someone who knows the team really well. So we had a good chat about him. But I think we just dive in straight into the news. Obviously, Zach's back this week. And so, as you said before the podcast recording, it's a chance for us to reset the narrative going into the off season, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got 7 big games left this season, and at the moment there's kind of a same old Jets kind of swirling around. But if you can put together 7 good games, maybe go 4-3, 3-4, and Zach looks good, Elijah Vera-Tucker plays well, Elijah Moore kind of keeps up his form, then suddenly it feels like you need a lot less pieces and there's a lot less questions at the end of season press conferences. Did you make the wrong decision at 2? Those questions go away. Did the guy you trade up for, does he look like a franchise cornerstone? That question can be gone. I think that question's already kind of going away. But you kind of reinstill faith in the franchise and you kind of build momentum for next year. And I think with so many young pieces on this team, we've kind of spoken all season about how this is such a young team, kind of building that momentum and kind of these guys learning how to win, learning how to kind of get it done on the road and at home, kind of bringing that momentum forward. It kind of gives a renewed sense of optimism going into the off-season. Of course, the counter, which we don't really want to think about, but if this season bottoms out and it's a 3-14, a 2-15 season, there's going to be a lot of those questions are going to kind of rise up, particularly if Zach doesn't play well, and they're going to kind of linger from January all the way through to September. So it's a real opportunity for the Jets. Obviously, the playoffs is gone, but I think unlike previous years, where perhaps at this point of the season I've been kind of hoping for losses and keeping an eye on the draft order, particularly last 2 years under Gase. It's this season I think we're hoping for wins, hoping for the boys to play well and kind of keep that momentum up, because we've seen them get a couple of surprise wins against hard teams, but matchups like this against the Texans, these are the kind of games that you want to be winning, you have to be winning. And I know a lot of teams will be saying that about the Jets going into the games against the Jets, but you got to kind of try and you got to win when you go into Houston at the moment. We have significantly better players, and we'll kind of break this down when we get later into the podcast, but there's better players on both sides of the ball are the New York Jets this weekend. So you've got to be able to go in there and get it done.
Yeah, this is the game where there's a certain nervousness I've got from this game, which I haven't had because we've been kind of underdogs, and it's kind of like, especially with Zach out, it's kind of like, well, let's just see what happens. And so it's been like a month of just, well, let's just see what happens, right? So I think now with Zach going back in there, the nerves of how he's going to perform, because obviously he is the proposed future for our franchise, and now in a game where he should do well, all the things set up for him to do well against a weaker opponent. It is on the road, but still it's in a dome situation. So all the things are in place for him to have a good week and see what he's learned. So there's that nervousness to see, has he picked up some of the lessons that we hoped he has, in his time on the sideline. So yeah, nervousness, and to your point about draft picks, or at this point of the season, you're normally like, well, we're looking at those draft picks, and we have been obviously we have been like, well, we're 2nd and we're 5th with the Seahawks pick. Well, let's just root for the Seahawks to lose out as many of the games as possible, and we get a top 10 pick through them. But let's hope that we actually are not a top 10 pick. Let's hope we end up in the the 11 to 15 range, because we've won a good amount of games and we've looked good. That's what we should be hoping for, because we've got a young core. We're not tanking for a QB. Hopefully we've got the QB in place, and that's what you want to build on. So yeah, there's that nervousness to this week that I haven't really had for the last few weeks, really.
Yeah, totally. And just on that point around the draft class, if there's a year looking ahead to the draft class where you kind of want to win a few games, I think this is one of the years you can kind of afford to, and we'll obviously break down this draft class in a lot more detail over in the new year. But I don't think this year there's too much of a difference picking 6th v 16th. There's kind of a big blanket can kind of been thrown over a lot of this class. You've kind of got Thibodeau and Neil, which are kind of streets ahead of everyone else, and there's kind of a huge cluster of players breaking through. So it's not the worst draft class. Whereas like last year we had Trevor Lawrence as kind of that cherry being dangled in front of us for most of the season, only to get it snatched away. This class isn't like that, and even if you are kind of going down the trade down route for this class, there's not really a quarterback as of yet who you think, oh, this team's definitely going to be looking to trade up for this quarterback.
Yeah, that's something to discuss down the line. I think if we start to still struggle and we end up keeping hold of that pick, or Seattle's pick becomes very high, you would hope that maybe a couple of QBs start to break out and become attractive options for QB needy teams, giving us an option to trade down, or maybe even land a Thibodeau with the top teams picking the QBs at the top of the draft. So we'll see that all play out. And like I said, well, let's just hope our draft pick is later on, and we've shown out some good stuff, and we have more excellence from Elijah Moore. Hopefully Michael Carter comes back in a few weeks and gets back on track from where he was, because I think he was going to take over that game as well. He was looking so spicy in that last game, and it was such a shame that he went out. So hopefully he comes back. I think the other story, obviously, this week is obviously with Zach coming back, and we're very lucky actually he didn't get caught up in all this. It's actually that Mike White tested positive for COVID, and Flacco being a close contact and being unvaccinated is also out now for 10 days. I think they said if he has like 5 negative tests, he may be able to play, but that's not really in play right now. I think the discussion about it has been brought up about, trading the 6th round pick has always been like, was it worth it? And now with this coming out, Salah was asked, how do you feel about trading that for a person that you knew was unvaccinated? And he was like, you get a chance to trade for a player like this, it doesn't really matter. What's your thoughts on that?
As with most of the Flacco news over the last month, starting with trading for him for a 6th rounder, then kind of the uproar around him starting over Mike White, and now this kind of him missing the game, it hasn't particularly moved the needle either way for me personally. I think that the value in Flacco has kind of been, we hoped would be added in kind of being a kind of person for Zach to turn to, and I don't think that really lessens this. And for all the uproar around a 6th round draft pick, we've seen Joe Douglas be able to move both ways in drafts, up and down. So the kind of idea of getting an extra 6th round back, you can recuperate that fairly easily.
Yeah,
I think it's the bigger issue here, which hasn't been spoken about quite as much, is the fact that it now means the Jets have to elevate Josh Johnson off the practice squad for what I believe is the 4th time. And once you have kind of done that 4th time, they can no longer be returned to the practice squad. So we're kind of facing a situation where the Jets are either going to have to carry 4 quarterbacks for the remainder of the season, which, given how thin the rest of the roster is, just feels like a wasted spot for someone else when we could do with so many bodies in the secondary or linebacker room, and it's a missed opportunity there.
I mean, that's why James Morgan re-signing is probably the end of Josh Johnson, right? Because for that reason, Josh Johnson will be now dropped, will be released,
Yeah.
and James Morgan can take his place on the practice squad. So I think that's just, it just indicates the way it's happened is just with the amount of different people that we've needed to roll through, we've had to kind of go through that, and that's just what it is. But I mean, for all the jokes about James Morgan coming back, it's obviously someone who knows the system very well. Obviously, was with us all summer, knows the QBs. It's fine. It's a good person to have there, and he may, if he has to step in, he'll probably throw for like 250 plus. Just like every backup quarterback who does well for us. It doesn't really matter, like I said. So I'm not too fussed about White and Flacco being out. I think Josh Johnson. I mean, we're not looking for any of these people to come in right now. We want Zach to play full 60 games, 7 games or full 60, and just actually be healthy and do well, and move on from there, and it's a non-issue. So yeah, I think it's it's obviously something when someone gets someone comes out as, oh, they're unvaccinated, and then there's this little narrative, obviously big, the media love to blow it up about, make a big story because obviously they need something to talk about. So it is what it is, but I thought it was just worth touching upon, because obviously it was something that was circulating around Jets land. With that, we'll wrap it up and we'll head over to my interview with Euan. Okay, so I'm joined by Euan from the Turn Up For What podcast, which is a UK-based Texans podcast. Euan, thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, it's it's 2-8 teams, heavyweight battle for the for the best draft pick, I guess. It's 2 teams in transition, 2 teams in doing different things. But it's always going to be fun to see this matchup, how it plays out. Before we get into kind of the specifics of this season and this game, just give the listeners a bit of a background of like how you became a Texans fan and when that was.
Yeah, I went to a game in 2012. Just happened a friend of mine was seconded with a company in Houston and went to visit for the weekend and got tickets for a game, Buffalo Bills, quarterbacked by Ryan Fitzpatrick at the time. Mario Williams had just signed for Buffalo in what was the biggest defensive contract in the league at that point, after being a premier Houston draft pick. And then, went to that game, and it felt like at that point they were sort of on the crest of a wave, or certainly something that had the foundations to be sustainable. And it's looked like that for a while, but it's certainly taken a bit of a different twist in recent years. And here we are in the drudgery of 2021 season. It's finding out how the other half live, and it's not all that pretty.
You're finding how the Jets live, basically. Unfortunately, that's what we've been like that for 10 years. So it's like, yeah, it's not good looking. Like, hopefully, most teams don't stay like this for that long. You kind of get yourself sorted after a couple of years. You need to rebuild it, and it's just there's a few teams, my team included, it just doesn't get, we don't get things moving. And I think we're there now, but it's taken such a long time. Hopefully for you guys, you can get things sorted out a little bit. In terms of, this season, going into the season, obviously there's a lot of negativity around the team, naturally, obviously with Deshaun's kind of accusations, all that stuff coming out. But obviously there's the stuff with the backroom, kind of the situation with the GM and the backroom stuff, all that's happening in the background, Caserio, and who's the guy who's the kind of guy in the background, what's his name? Is that kind of advisor kind of guy who's kind of sitting in the back, he's kind of friends with the owner.
Oh, right, you mean Jack Easterby? Yeah,
Easterby. Yeah. So there's like a lot of talk about that setup there. So, but from an insider, from a fan point of view, someone who kind of knows the team better than the average fan, and definitely people who follow just mainstream media, what was it like, going into this season with, the expectations? Is it tank season? What was it like going into this season, and how's it played out for the first 10 weeks?
It's been a lifetime. Well, it certainly feels like a lifetime in the last number of months. There's been a lot of moves, a lot of players signed on short-term deals, and that was all in part. And then after the introduction of the legal cases that we saw come around in sort of March, after the January, or it became formal, when Deshaun Watson handed in a trade request. It's a sorry situation. I think that's the only way you can describe it, to be in sort of quarterback purgatory for that long, to then finally find the guy who is meant to be a franchise quarterback, your savior, your leader for 15 years or what have you. For that to all kind of come about in the way it's done is quite a sorry situation, and really tough to kind of digest for many people. And I think from the outside looking in, I suppose it's a situation that probably could have been avoided. I think it's a very talented young man who's been terribly advised by his agent, and the people around him are meant to support him. But yeah, so here we are with a guy that wants out, who's on the 53-man roster, but has no intention of playing for the ball club again, and that's predominantly through his certainly view that is that the club haven't put him in a position to win, and just talking about how this team's taken a downfall in the last 2 years, rapid decline in what should have been a championship playoff roster at a minimum. So, but it's been a number of bad decisions, a number of choice has been made by people giving them power that should never have really had that in the first place, and you scratch away at something that it's all very temporary, I think, and it can all unravel and quicker than you could ever dream of building it, I think, and that's what we've learned here, and we're now sort of in a situation whereby we've got a guy here who's immensely talented, and for a player like that to be potentially available to other teams just never really ever happened before. So we hope you can pick up a premium package of picks. Not really too interested in veteran contract players, but if you can take on a suite of those picks to try and engineer some form of rebuilding, kickstart a new era again, then you can move on. But yeah, this season very much is just it started with a cloud hanging over it. It's continued to have that every game pretty much, and every week and every discussion topic. There's not getting away until we all move on and wipe the slate clean. But it seems like a long time away. I could probably talk to you for hours about the intricacies of it all, but it's all a bit of a sorry mess really, and looking to move on. But you've got to when you're selling such a prized asset that's so rare. You've got to be really careful how you do that. So from that point of view, I'm glad that Nick Casario's held his nerve, and we're taking this to the off season where it should have been taken. Obviously, the whole process was held by the legal accusation that came about, and once we move on from that, we feel like we can move on. But hopefully, and a lot, 1 year in national football is a long time. So hopefully there'll be a number of teams all kind of creating a bit of a market, and we can get true value, not some of the quotations that were outlined pre-trade value and in the off season. 3/3 and 3/3. It's not worth it. So hopefully, we can find the real value, what a rare commodity this is we're selling. And once we do that, we can move on. It can start being about football again. But the problem is with this club, it's not been about football for a long time.
Yeah, there's been a lot of kind of bit of a circus down there over in terms of a lot of the media, getting its teeth into the different characters that are involved in the team. I mean, I guess you got to let the whole legal to really get the true value for Deshaun Watson and obviously for what his ability is. You're going to have to see the legal stuff has to play itself out and see where that stands before teams can really give you the value, because rather there's always going to be a discount until. It's like it's like buying a car and not knowing if the engine starts right now if he's not going to be available.
Well,
so
yeah, I mean, I think people do say that, and that's the sort of general national media narrative. But I don't particularly subscribe to that in the sense that if the legal situations were, you wouldn't be talking about his availability. So, that is the primary factor for his availability. I think the club would have told him to buckle up his chin strap and move on if it was just a request. But the fact that they knew about all this kind of stuff off the field, knew about it a long time prior to it being public, that increased their willingness to accept the fact they would move on. So it's not a reluctant move on from the internal point of view, I don't think, because there's a good rationale that he's embarrassed himself and he's embarrassed the club by doing and carrying on the way of what he did off the field. And time will tell. I'm not here to judge. That's why that whole process is in place to. But it's only civil cases at the minute. There's the any criminal sort of stuff's never really moved on or progressed in any sense. So it's merely for financial reparation, and that's where it'll be. But yeah, I just don't accept the fact that it would be it would be the case that you take a discount because of this, because okay, in football, okay, right, he goes to jail or something like that, yeah, then okay, fair enough, there's a warning, so you could put a clause in that. But the likelihood is he'll miss 6 games, and if you're going to take him for 12 years, what's 6 games in 12 years over a price, so it's like saying you've not got any grass in your back garden but you want a discount on the house, in my opinion. So I'm of the opinion that if you don't get a true result of this, and I would think a minimum four first round picks. If any less than that, in my view, it'll be an undervaluation, because if a box safety is worth two ones and a first, who can't make an interception, Or did the other week right
Yeah.
enough. But if that's the value of
Well,
that kind of player,
yeah, I
a
get it.
quarterback has to have a premium.
It was a funny debate because obviously the Jets were one of the teams who were talked about with Deshaun obviously coming off the situation that in the season before. Obviously, all this came out and they kind of quieted the news of the trade talks. But yeah, obviously it was talked about with that top first round pick and whether they would offer it. And it was always one of those things where we're saying, yeah, we're happy we got that deal with Jamal Adams, but at the same time we only want to offer a little bit more for Deshaun Watson. So it is one of those things, right? It's just you're always going to try and kind of minimize the assets you want to give away, but because you want to hopefully get a good deal there. But I think and on your side it's the opposite. So yeah, it's an interesting situation. I think obviously the Jets are not going to be players in that, but there's going to be, I think there'll be a few of the teams if things do clean up a little bit, and they kind of get an understanding, and the off season's the right time to do it. So
Yeah.
in terms of the seasons played out, in terms of obviously you had Tyrod out for quite a while, and he's obviously come back and inspired a really good win this Sunday. How are you feeling about the on-field products? Is it just one of those years where you're just kind of just almost punting to next year until you can really start replenishing the team a bit?
It's a strange situation because we've kind of got a hybrid kind of coaching staff. Some of the previous, some fresh. David Cullion is a first-time head coach who's effectively a caretaker to see through what's going to probably be a 2-year kind of limbo period. That would have been with Deshaun or without. I would have said to a lesser degree if he'd have played. There's a number of players here that shouldn't be on NFL rosters, in my opinion. There's a number of guys who probably aren't getting snaps or aging veterans that are taking snaps away from younger players or could be younger players on a roster. So, and I think for Caserio, for all the positivity or the credence he's been given in holding out Deshaun Watson, I don't agree with what he's done in the off-season, particularly with spent future cap dollars, brought in a lot of guys on, cut guys and inhibit our money to spend in future years. So, I think the on-field product, is it good? An offensive side of the ball, no, it's not particularly good with or without Tyrod. Certainly not what we've been used to. His mobility allows that, probably equalises some of the kind of shortcomings in his game. He came back against Miami, didn't play particularly well, and we were handed a game by Tennessee with 5 turnovers. So, I think it's kind of one of those things. He played a great game in week 1, but it was against a Jacksonville Jaguars team who were not ready to play this season. And there's some serious questions about Urban Meyer and his longevity as a pro coach. So I think with that background and what in 2 quarters against Cleveland, who I'm pretty confident would have won that game if Tyrod had stayed healthy, because there was a bit of momentum there, which is huge in the league. But you've kind of seen what the Cleveland Browns are, and you've probably and I think without a run game, Baker Mayfield's been exposed for what he is, I think, and so that there's there was some sort of signs of hope, but I think when you put them in the context and when you see that play over a number of weeks, then you kind of see that perhaps some falsities in there, if you like. But yeah, I think look, the defense has improved. It couldn't have got any worse last year. It was all time bad, lowest since 1958, I think, in turnovers. Only 9 last season. We've had 10 the last 2 games, so kind of tells you how things were going last year in terms of that. So there's been an improvement in that, but we're a talent bereft roster, and I think you kind of referenced it earlier. I think there's a lot of teams who are rebuilding, but we're probably a year behind that just by having some fundamental pieces, and there is very, very few sort of cornerstone foundation pieces here that will see us through into an era whereby we can be deemed a playoff caliber or a relevant team in terms of a week to week on a Sunday.
Yeah, you give me the vibes of where we were last year with Gase, where a lot of the fan base was very anti his hiring. It was like I think even before even on the night he was hired, it was a big outcry in terms of not really being happy with it. And then the first year there was a lot of kind of, it was 9-7 season, but you could see actually that it was a bit of a false 9-7 through some of the things. There was a lot of backups that we beat up on, things like that. So it was, and we kind of knew going into this year it was going to be like, oh well, we hope we're wrong, but we don't think it's going to be very good, and then end up being dreadful stuff last year. Obviously, we didn't get our first win till like week, or was it 15 against the Rams? So I think it's kind of one of those things where I can kind of see where you're wanting to support the team, you're trying to see positives there, but really is kind of seeing the season through and kind of moving on and kind of almost seeing the season to kind of like clear the mess out of the way and then build from this year. So,
I don't even know if we're quite there, to be honest. I think that might take 2 years just to do that. But I suppose the big difference between this year and last year, I think, is there isn't a clear number one talented quarterback. So if we win a few games, I'm not, it doesn't bother me too much, because some people subscribe to one school. I thought you should lose as many games as you can, and if that gets you number one quarterback, and ironically that win you talked about against the Rams took you out of the race to get which, albeit okay, Matt Jones has probably been the best, but I think if you look at the longer term, you're talking 10, 15 year payback, then you've got to think Trevor Lawrence has got the ability to do that in the right situation. I'm not too fussed if we don't lose, but if it was last year, I would have been. I think you would have been happy to lose, and you never know, that win against LA might go down in history as a big changing point for multiple franchises. But
exactly. I mean, we just don't know. I mean, we're pretty happy with Zach overall. It's not been a great start for him. He's obviously been injured after struggling a little bit with a bit of too much hero ball. But he would have learned quite a lot from the guys coming back and playing the system within the system that's been brought over from San Francisco. And I think hopefully he can learn some of that kind of, you don't have to play at 100 miles an hour every single time. You're not at BYU now. You've got talented playmakers around you who can make it happen on their own. You don't have to make the play yourself. So he's coming back this week, it looks like. It'll be confirmed probably on Wednesday. So that'll be fun. It'll be interesting for his return after a few weeks of where the offense has actually taken off a little bit. It'll be kind of, it's interesting as we head into this game. For Jets fans and obviously general fans who won't know the Texans, I mean, you've said about it being a talent-proof roster, but is there a few players who stand out? You said the defense has been an improvement or shown some signs. Is there any people that maybe the general NFL fan wouldn't know but could make a difference and make some plays on Sunday?
The limit, I suppose. Jonathan Greenard's been the biggest standout on this roster this season. Frustratingly so, he didn't play last year, but he's come in and shown a propensity to get to the quarterback, whether it be clean-up sacks or raw wins at the line of scrimmage or hand fighting, leverage or what have you. But he's really kind of been a surprise, a nice surprise or a nice welcomed addition. He's got the potential to be a number 2 or a number 3, rusher on a good team. And he came out of Florida, transfer from Louisville, 3rd round pick. Ironically, I don't think Bill O'Brien actually wanted him, based on his reaction on draft night, if you remember that. Getting a bit kind of animated at the laptop in that Zoom only draft. So yeah, he's been a nice surprise. Ross Blackwalk, who was the 2nd round pick of the pick received back from the Arizona Cardinals and then the ill-fated DeAndre Hopkins trade. He had probably his best game on Sunday, actually. That's the best probably I've seen him play. He's a good one-gap defensive tackle who can get upfield in a hurry and put pressure on the quarterback, and he's making improvements against the run. A couple of TFLs, got into a bit with Adrian Peterson on Sunday, so that was good to see. Absolutely, and probably a guy who's it was Desmond King, who came over from the Titans. Had a good game on Sunday, 2 interceptions. He's kind of flashed here and there. And actually a guy who I'd be most surprised was being Cammy Grugier, the linebacker who was at Philadelphia last year, and has come over and has grown week by week in the defence and has taken on more of a starter role. Now, look, these are not game-changing players by any stretch of the imagination, but there certainly can be complementary pieces and role players come in the future. Obviously, Brandon Cooks has been our most effective offensive output. Player-wise, I think Nico Collins has got a big future in the league, was cruelly taken away a touchdown on the weekend and just to be out of bounds, which was really, really harsh. I think it was, millimeters in it of his knee and his shoulder hitting the grass and the paint at the back of the end zone. So he looks like he could be potential. Brevin Jordan's just come in as well in the last couple of weeks, and at tight end coming out of Florida, and he's looked pretty good Miami, and he's looked pretty good as well. So just in his limited snaps, he's been kind of almost redshirted in that sense. So yeah, I think he's been quite good. Obviously, we've had Davis Mills come in and kind of is what he is. I think in this at this stage of his career, very raw, very limited starts, and I'll expect to be Tyrod, because I think this coaching staff want to try and keep themselves in a job for the second year. I think there will be some changes, but yeah, I think it'll be Tyrod Taylor, and I think there's an element of him, his mobility and his kind of veteran-ness will win you some games, and I think that's probably the hope. If you can keep it together and play disciplined football, not turn the ball over, then we've got a chance to win games. But for this team to win games, it's a fine margin, so a lot has to go right in their favour, just by lack of talent. But yeah, there's some pieces have emerged this year, but we'll be back to the drawing board, I think, for a lot of positions and a lot of needs, and I think there'll be a lot more turnover this off-season again once again.
Yeah, it's one of those seasons, and so yeah, I mean there are a few players that kind of shine in these years that kind of, I hope they come along with the rest of the journey, and so they kind of come out of these kind of dark years. I mean, we had John Franklin Myers, who we recently signed to a big contract. He was signed in the middle of this whole Gase era, which was obviously a very negative era, but he was a bright spot, and he's kind of transformed this part of this new kind of Salah front of what he tried to do. Obviously, it was supposed to have Carl Lawson as well, but so some of these players can actually kind of be born out of this kind of situation and then move their way through to the new, more positive situation going forward. So, in terms of the game itself, like prediction wise, for like kind of something that might happen in the game that you think, prediction, touchdowns, interceptions, yardage, is there something you want to throw out there that you think could be a bold prediction for the game?
I think this season's probably taught us more than most that what you expect to happen on a Sunday is likely not to. There continues to be a number of upsets every week.
It's literally every time. Like, even when I would speak to people every week, that Bengals one, it was just, we were just laughing on both sides of the podcast. We were laughing about like how much the Jets were going to get destroyed, and ended up look what happened with that game. So yeah, that's on. I definitely love, but it's always fun to throw these things out and just to see.
Yeah, well, that was a funny one, wasn't it? Because they gave that terrible penalty at the end of the game, and that kind of kept it alive and stuff. So yeah, I think so. And you beat the Titans as well, didn't you? So I think there's been I can't really. It's hard to really tell. Apart from this team's going to try and play it simple, stay in the game. Probably not going to be able to run the ball very well, and it'll just be dependent on how you can, if you can hold up against the passing attack. Should it come together? I think it was sort of hindered last week with the rain in Tennessee. So obviously playing in NRG Stadium, controlled environment. So it's a bit of a level playing field though. But it'll be interesting to see Zach Wilson and what he can do. And obviously, I think our secondary is there to be had. We play a lot of zone coverage, kind of soft off man. So, I think, there's definitely yards to be had there. Obviously, we can see Ryan Griffin make his comeback after he, magnanimously punched a window in Nashville when we drafted another tight end who's no longer on our roster. So yeah, I think there'll be,
He's not a fan favorite. He's not a fan favorite with the Jets. We're not exactly. We are very much looking forward to moving on from Ryan Griffin as soon as possible. Really, like he's highly mediocre. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I was just saying, sixth-round pick at UConn. He was always gonna, be a role player at best. I think he kind of got thrust into a role here for a while, and yeah,
same here, unfortunately.
Yeah, right place at right time, gets an extension and what have you, and then potentially doesn't. It gets outlived by other players. But yeah, no, I think it's interesting to see sort of that Elijah Molden at a big game. So there's guys there that can come in and
like Molden,
you will have opportunities against the secondary. There's no doubt about that. So any given
it's a good
Sunday,
test for Zach to see if he's learned. It gives him, on paper, an easier challenge than what he might have faced against the Bills and Dolphins most recently. I think obviously he's going to have to play better and incorporate what he's learned from some of the more veteran players who've taken the spot in the last few weeks. But it'll be interesting because he's got all world talent. It's just he needs to learn when to use it and when to play within the system and to take what's given. And not everything has to be all on his shoulders. So I think if he does that, he could have a good end to the season and it could start on Sunday. But that's to be seen. In terms of a game prediction, you guys are opened up as 2.5 point favourites for the game, which is, it's always interesting when two teams like think they might be the favourite in a game, and like so, I think the Jets still aren't the favourite in any game because of what happened on Sunday. What's your thoughts in terms of a score prediction for the game, as best as you can tell? Obviously, with everything being so unpredictable this
Yeah,
year.
I saw something today that I suppose the home team is often favourite if it's a pick 'em kind of contest like this. But I think the Jets haven't been favourite in a game since August 2020. I was sure I read today. But yeah, no, I think it will be a close game. We're not a team that's going to put up a lot of points. So 24-18, 24-19, something like that. I think you could see. I think maybe give the Texans a slight edge at home. Coming off a win, coming off a bye week, should be the fresher of the two. Less injuries, and I think Lovie Smith, as a veteran defensive coordinator, should have a good game plan for Zach Wilson. It's a very prototypical type Tampa cover 2 scheme. So if he can read and understand that, then he will have opportunities to find holes in the zone coverage in the passing game. That being said, I think we did quite a good job against the Patriots before they kind of went on a bit of a winning streak. Taking a like for like example against Mac Jones, and he and for all intents and purposes, until we threw that game away, as we have done with a couple, we look very much in control. Albeit with Davis Mills under centre. So yeah, I expect Tyrod to come out and play well. Obviously a couple of guys up front, as you said, it can cause you problems, Leonard Williams and what have you, but certainly I think when we went up against the Titans front, who was destroying games recently, kept Tyrod clean, despite struggling to run the ball, and that's our biggest challenge. But if we could find some holes in the passing game and a bit of ingenuity and a bit of creativity against a Jets defense, it's not particularly feared, I don't think. I think we'll maybe have a chance to scrape some points, but it'll be close. There'll not be much, and it'll be the classic one or two plays either way that'll swing everything. But being at home,
within a touchdown kind of game.
I've got to think so. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds probably right. I think you could either say either you make a case for either team winning on a tight margin like that. I think Sunday really is going to be quite a close game, and I think it's whoever plays the cleaner game, right, is the team that doesn't make as many mistakes, and it gives up those penalty yards at those crucial moments. I think that's going to be key to who wins the game on Sunday. Euan, thanks for joining us on the pod, or joining me on the pod. It's been really good. In terms of shout outs, any of the listeners, I know a lot of people like to listen to fans from around the UK, get an idea of teams and listen to other UK based fans. Where can people find you and listen to your pod?
Yeah, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Podcast Texans. Website is podcasttexans.com. We'll be live at the game this week. Hopefully,
you're flying out. Yeah,
hopefully in the right spot in the stadium, if we can get it signed off this week. But yeah, just be delighted to be going over again and enjoying it. We're probably not started out as a UK kind of fans podcast, but it's definitely not that anymore. It's kind of taken arms and legs and evolved a touch. But yeah, you can check us out. Turn Up for What podcast on all kind of your classic streaming services, and check us out on YouTube as well. Got a big podcast last week about top 10 or 10 draft prospects that is probably universal, so check that one out. It's been pretty popular. So cool. But yeah, if you're ever inclined to make a change, then I just looked back at my calendar there. I actually went to a Jets game, the only Jets game I've ever been to, in 2012. That would have been week 15 at the time in old money against the San Diego at the time Chargers, and it was McElroy at quarterback in 2012, and I think it was it still your man. It was Rex. It was still Rex at the time.
Rex was there. Yeah, Rex was there till 2014.
Yeah, so it was still Rex Ryan. And I remember asking the lady at the bar, because they had a big poster up and it said, free bus to Jets games. And I said, what time's the free bus? And she said, that stopped at about week 6. So this is week 15.
Yeah, that was a dark time. That was like the post, success part. That was like that was post butt fumble, and which is that's been almost the beginning of the 10-year. So far, the 10-year playoff track. It was almost, that was like the end of the Rex success, you know,
Yeah.
the beginning and then the end of his reign as Jets coach. So those years are rough.
But
And it's not,
what I would
yeah,
say is I've been to a Giants and a Jets game on various holidays, and
yeah,
there is a noticeable difference in some of the pictures that I've looked out there of the attendance at the Jets game. Despite I think that was a 4 or 5 win season, that one in 2012, second last week of the year. There was far more people in MetLife that day than there will be in NRG this weekend in bad times. So you earn the good times, I think. So hopefully you've earned it at some point, because it's a better place to league, I think, with the traditional boys, and they're doing well. So all
yeah,
the
we'll
best to you on
see.
Sunday.
Well, thank you. You know, like I said, I can't wish you all the best that much in terms of the game, but let's hope for an injury-free game, is what I always say to our guests. You know, in terms of, I can't wish you luck for the game winning it, but let's get out of that game without too many injuries for the guys playing. But yeah, Euan, thanks for joining us, and we'll head it back to me and the guys. Okay, so we'd like to thank Euan for jumping on the podcast. I know he's landed and safely he's in Houston, enjoying his weekend as much as he can, since we talked. So yeah, now we jump on to our preview from our end of the game. I think it's really a case of the Houston Texans are such a limited team that are really they've got some players that can hurt you, of course, but it's really about if we do our job, there isn't really anything that they throw at us that we have to really be worried about. If we do our job and play our game, I think will be too much for them. But that's that if that happens, right? So, what's the game plan for Zach and the offense?
Well, it's going to be interesting to kind of see how the offense approaches it, because for the first time this season, the Jets probably have, with the exception of perhaps Brandon Cooks, the best 5 players on the pitch on Sunday. People like Quinn and Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, all walk into that Texans team and kind of raise the bar of their performances immediately. So the talent is there, and it should be a good game. There's 3 kind of things that I wanted to talk about on Jets offense for this week, and the first and the headline, of course, is Zach coming back. And it's going to be interesting to see, has what he's been shown over the last 4 weeks, with all of the uproar and furor about these other quarterbacks coming in and perhaps operating a more efficient offense with the help of players turning up around them, with the help of Mike LaFleur's play calling and awareness getting a bit better, is that kind of momentum able to be kept up? Because I think the Jets are something like 9th in passing attack at the moment, which is somewhat ridiculous considering the kind of quarterbacking play we've seen over the last couple of years. So it feels very, very heady heights indeed. But
I think it's the defense being so bad and us kind of playing catch up probably factors in a little bit. But yeah, but we have been pretty good at it, which is not. It's a bit of both, right? It is a bit of positive, but it's a little bit of circumstantial as well.
Circumstantial, absolutely, but it's still a nice stat to see. So there's a couple of things we need to do for Zach, I reckon, and the first one is on him, and it's kind of, does he show that development in terms of going through his reads and kind of making the decision making and having confidence in checkdowns? And I think Michael Carter will be a big miss for him in terms of that safety blanket, that ability to throw the out route, throw the underneath check down, and kind of trust your running back to beat a man and get 5, 6, 7 yards as opposed to dropping the ball. Ty Johnson looks like he's getting a bit better in the pass catching game. We've kind of seen improvement from him because start of the season was a bit sloppy in terms of pass protection and also just catching. So hopefully he can kind of lessen that blow. And then how can Mike LaFleur help him in terms of the play calling and putting him in good positions? Are we able to get Zach on 2nd and manageable, 3rd and manageable, so it's not in this, like we saw at the beginning of the year, where Zach's facing a 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 consistently and having to play that hero ball that has got him into trouble at points so far this season? How can we kind of make his game work for him? And I think a lot of that will kind of come down to these simple passes, these simple completions. It's his first start back, so can the Jets set it up for him? A nice underneath pass to Elijah Moore, an easy bubble screen to Corey Davis. These simple passes that kind of build his confidence up, get him back into the rhythm, the routine. And I think that's what's exciting about this week, is it kind of feels like, and I'm hopeful that it's kind of the start of what this offense is meant to be.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's still not. We're still missing Becton and Carter, but the rest of the pieces are kind of all there. Elijah Vera-Tucker, Elijah Moore. You've got George Fant, Morgan Moses who've been playing well. Ty Johnson can hopefully do a decent job. Corey Davis is a nice complementary piece. And I'm not saying it's going to be the offense that is rolled into next year, but there are enough of the pieces that you kind of want to see a bit of the plan there, with LaFleur helping them in the play calling, kind of working together and being efficient, being effective against what is a bad defense. And there will be opportunities for the Jets to take advantage. And having Zach back with Corey Davis and Elijah Moore, there will be chunk plays, but can they kind of show that game plan, show that management, and kind of keep that and kind of tease us? And this kind of will run throughout the whole next 7 games of the season.
Yeah.
But going back to that point at the top, you can kind of control the off-season narrative from here on out and demonstrate what the plan is on offense. And then the final thing.
Sorry, I was going to say it's almost like the beginning of the season again, isn't it? You know, it's like we're almost restarting the season, and this is the season from now on, and this is what's going to matter going forward into the off season.
Totally, and that's exactly what it should be taken as. It's kind of a reset point with John Beck on the sideline for Zach, LaFleur up in the booth. These are kind of big things that we haven't seen Zach have the benefit of so far. So it'll be interesting to see how it impacts him. And then I guess the last point I just wanted to make on the offensive side of the ball is just kind of touch on the NFL Rookie of the Week, Elijah Moore. And what a great effort that was by Jets fans to get him over the line. I checked it on Wednesday night, and I think he was about 2 percentage points down. And I know a lot of people voted multiple times to kind of get him over the line and secure that win. So that was great to see.
We defeated the Cowboys Twitter on that one because they crushed the voting. I mean, they got Parsons to win the Rookie of the Week when Michael Carter got like 172 all-purpose yards as well, like a few weeks ago. So, like I think we saw the target that was there. We just kept on pushing to make sure that he got what was deserved. Because when you looked at the stats of all the players, he deserved it, didn't he?
Oh, totally. And it'll be great to see if that can kind of continue. The question mark and something to really watch for is how are Zach and Elijah's chemistry and rapport going to develop? And I think it's important to remember that it's easy to blame perhaps Zach for the kind of limited production over those first 5 weeks when he was quarterbacking and Elijah was wide receiver. But Elijah missed all of training camp and preseason, so he didn't really get those opportunities to get those reps. And I think Elijah has taken a bit of time to kind of adjust to the game, and he's now looking like a real weapon and a real asset for the Jets. So can he continue to take those steps? You're going up against a weak secondary. Can you kind of continue to beat a man, shake a man, kind of get those long touchdowns and put up another big game? Because if he has a strong finish to the season, we're talking about a rookie 1,000-yard receiver, which the Jets haven't had in so long.
Yeah,
and it'd be great to see. So really looking forward to seeing Elijah Moore with Zach back there. Are they going to kind of exploit the long game a bit more, those deep shots? Because that's what the Jets have really missed over the last couple of weeks, is that ability to take those deep shots. And it has shown up in kind of the limitations of this offense. So I think it's a big step forward for the offense on Sunday. I'm hoping that they can kind of perform and show development and show consistency. But it'll be an interesting one to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, I think it's the relationship between Moore and Zach is going to be crucial in terms of keeping Moore on the trajectory that he's on. In terms of he's doing so well with everyone else, you want to see that established with Zach as well, because that's hopefully your future pairing, wide receiver and quarterback. Hopefully those guys are a prolific pairing going into the future. So that's what you hope, and there's so much that's depending on Zach coming back now. I think, like you said, you touched upon with John Beck on the sideline, Mike LaFleur up in the booth, and he hasn't had that before. I think it's all the pieces are in place now for Zach to really, like, everyone else has kind of got themselves in motion in terms of for the season, and now it's for him to jump on and take his place there. And I think he can elevate it even further once he kind of gets there. But for now, I think it's about him just taking what's given them, kind of replicating what his peers in the QB room have been doing, and trying to keep it simple. Don't do too much right now. Kind of just, especially against an opponent like Houston, you shouldn't have to, like, if you play a game very similar to the way some of the other QBs have played, we'll win this game. Like, because it's not, we're not needing him to do that. There may be games down the line, even next week against Philly, where the run game is so dominant there, we may be struggling against that, and there may be needs for him to push the ball to catch up and stay ahead of in the game. So I think for this game, it's just about him getting back under there, getting some confidence back into his game. Having some positive media around the whole team, and I think overall it's just play simple, play it nicely, get the ball in your playmakers' hands and do that. And then obviously there's going to be opportunities where the play breaks down, someone misses a block because that's just our line, it's not perfect. There's going to be moments where he's going to have to spring out of there, and then on those moments you're going to make the right decision. Are you going to throw it into double coverage because you feel you've got the arm, which we know you've got, but are you going to do it, or are you going to if it's first down, maybe just throw it out? Like, those decisions that you want to see happening at real time, you hopefully those things are going to happen. But until it happens, you just don't know. It's just kind of, I'm just holding my breath at this point in terms of where we are and how it's going to be on Sunday. Because, like we've said, it's one of the best opponents to face, but if it goes wrong, then it's one of the worst situations potentially in terms of the narratives and all the nonsense that's going to go around the team. So yeah, I guess it's just, you just want for it to go well and for him to have a good performance no matter the score. So yeah, I think it's offensively we should be able to dictate ourselves in this game. That they haven't got anybody on their team that there's a few players. Obviously, every NFL team is going to have some decent players, but there's no one that really scares you on either side of the ball. So we've got the players that do. If they look at us and say, well, yeah, they may look at us and say they're beatable, but they do have to concede that we've got some players who are scary and that are people who can actually beat you single-handedly. So on the defense, Matt, what we're looking at, how we can, we had a decent showing against the Dolphins. It wasn't great, but it wasn't as bad as it's been. This Texans offense is very limited. I know Tyrod was running for a few touchdowns last week, but they are a very limited team. That where I chat with Euan, he was talking about the fact that they can't really run the ball very well, and so I think we should be able to control this game, and you want to see a bit of a dominant performance on the defense, right?
Yeah, I think defense is kind of, I'll be able to keep it a lot quicker because I have said the similar things about this defense so many times throughout the season. It is kind of asking for more of the change, more of the same. I think the thing to start with is kind of going back to last week's game and having Kyle Phillips back in the lineup. If you go back and watch the tape, having him back and being able to position him in that wider role and move John Franklin Myers to the interior, where I think he's better rushing from, particularly on those early downs and getting after the quarterback, was such a benefit. And it kind of makes two positions better. It makes your edge better and it makes your interior better. And I think that will be continued this week because Bryce Huff, who had such a good start to the season and is one of these unheralded players on the D-line who doesn't really get talked about as much as Quinnen and Sheldon and JFM. But he does an excellent job of kind of getting that speed and snap off the edge and being able to get pressure on the quarterback. We've missed him the last couple of weeks. He has been missed. So having him back is going to be so important for this defense, I think, and kind of establishing the way they want to play, particularly in this Ulbrich scheme where it's get four people after the quarterback and pin your ears back and go. This kind of, we've spoken about it, it's quite a basic scheme up front, but when it's effective, it's really effective. So that's kind of the hope there. I think looking at what you're going up against, as you said, we're going up against a team who can't run the ball particularly well and whose offensive line have struggled, and that can be compounded by Tyrod Taylor. And I know he's made some great plays with his legs over the last couple of weeks, but he is a quarterback who will hold the ball a little bit longer than some of the ones we've played. Like Tua last week he was snappy with the ball too and kind of got it out quickly, to his credit, whereas Tyrod hasn't always been the best at that and kind of making those decisions, and has showed a tendency to hold on to the ball. So there will be opportunities for this defensive line to kind of get after him, get in his face, get pressures, get sacks hopefully, and kind of show up in the box score. I think on the back seven, the linebackers and the cornerback and the safeties, you're kind of asking for more of the same. You're asking for Quincy Williams to kind of keep showing this development next to CJ Mosley, keep putting in these big hits. I think he just needs to play with that kind of discipline, because when he gets a bit loose, there are big plays for the offense, and he can kind of has a tendency to overrun tackles or be a bit too aggressive. Just play disciplined. And then cornerbacks is the question mark. Bryce Hall and Michael Carter, the second, look excellent and really, really top players. It's that other corner spot opposite them, Isaiah Dunn, Jason Pinnock, have kind of rotated through there. Who's going to be able to kind of step up there? And if you can kind of lock down that and the safety position helping out, we're in a better position, because those positions, that kind of second cornerback and safeties we're talking about literal street free agents at this point, with the exception of Ashton Davis, who hasn't quite developed as we would have liked for a third round pick, and he's kind of shown flashes like the interception last week, but that's where you kind of want to see. And against a team which kind of has the limited receiving talent that Houston do, you kind of want to see them lock it down and kind of keep it sensible, keep it in front of you, and that kind of bend don't break mentality out of them will go a long way to helping the Jets win this game. So all in all, it's an opportunity for the defense and kind of to lay a marker. They kind of have shown gradual improvement after 4 really bad weeks against Indianapolis and the Patriots, and I can't even remember the other teams.
The Bills, yeah.
The Bills, I have kind of banished those games from my memory.
Don't blame you.
Don't blame me. Miami was a step forward. This is an opportunity to take a big step forward, and as kind of said at the top of the show, this is about kind of resetting the narratives and taking the control of the offseason and what you want to show. And that's going to mean a lot for these players, particularly people like Michael Carter and Quinnen and Quincy. They have an opportunity to kind of go out there and put some good tape out there. So hopefully they can kind of show up and kind of get the job done.
Yeah, just like the offense, this is another one where if we do our job, by and large, we'll be able to withstand them. And like you say, keep everything in front, make them earn every yard. And I think they'll make enough mistakes where they won't be able to keep the drives going, as long as you just don't, beat yourself up. That was what happened with Tennessee. They weren't able to. They beat themselves up. That's what happened with the Jaguars in week 1. They beat themselves up. So. I think it's just, if you play your game against this Texans team, you're going to overmatch them, and that's what's happened in every other game. They've been, Tyrod, since Tyrod's been with Tyrod around, they have been a more competitive team, at the beginning of the season, and then since he's been back, but it's still a very limited team. So, obviously they are the bookies' favourite by 3 points. It's almost like they're calling it a pick'em game almost with it being the home advantage for Houston. But I think it's the Jets really should be going there and saying this is the first step of our new direction of where we're going with Zach being in there. It's like I said, the whole situation for all our young players, we just want them to show up against this team, because we know if they do, they'll be able to they've got this one. They really do. But we know that they could just not even get off the plane, right? We know that's definitely a factor. They don't get off the plane, we lose against Houston, and then it's a real negative day. So it's kind of for the first time we're in a kind of in that situation where we're expected to win. I think logically, right? I think it's an expectation that we should be winning this game without being too of a homer pick. And it's kind of on both sides of the ball. You just want them to put out their best game, or put out something decent and just put this team to bed, really, and just move on to some of the more difficult opponents coming up. So, with that said, I think we'll go to our predictions for the game, Matt.
Well, I have one more thing. Can I just jump in quickly with one more thing? Just one final thing on the specials team side of the ball. This game kind of feels like last chance saloon for Matt Amendola, doesn't it?
Of course. Yeah, we should be touching upon him. Yeah, for sure.
The Jets brought in a kicker to the practice squad this week, and after last week's couple of missed kicks, and it's kind of been a bit iffy all season, and it's not really surprising, because if you look at his college stats, it was kind of the same there. So I think this is probably do or die for the Jets, because not being able to kind of keep that scoreboard ticking over and kind of going 3 points, 6 points, 9 points, kind of adding to your total from touchdowns. And obviously we all want to see touchdowns, but it doesn't always quite go like that. If he's not able to do that this week, I think you will probably see a new kicker for the Philadelphia game and last chance saloon. Because he does have a big leg and he's kind of got the power. It's just his accuracy lets him down so often.
Yeah.
So let's see how he does. I just wanted to touch on that as something
No, I
to
think
watch
it's
for this game.
I think it's worthy to mention it so we kind of gloss over special teams a bit. Just generally, right? We're looking at the other two parts of the game, but that's definitely one to look out for. And in how he does is obviously, as I said earlier, it's a dome game, so he's going to have no weather issues there. So it's all about him just nailing the technique down. And like I said, he's got big legs, so you just got to get that technique and hopefully come through with a big game. And we get a couple of significant kicks that that help the Jets win the game on Sunday. So with that, let's go to our predictions for the game. What do you think, Matt? What are you thinking?
So I might have cursed the Jets because I actually put a bet down last night on the Jets money line because it was at 2.2 odds. So I was hoping to double my money. So I've got to stick with that now that I put money on the line, haven't I? So I will say the Jets probably win, and the Texans probably hang around longer than we want them to. I think the Jets will find some ways to jet it up, for lack of a better term. Let me put the final score at 27-17.
Okay. I think it's going to be. Yeah, I think we're both going for a win here. I think it's logical. I don't think it's I don't think it's so we're not trying to wish anything. I think it's logical when you look at everything lines up. If we play our game, we should do well. I'll go for a 24-14. 24-13, sorry. We'll go 24-13 on my end. We're in for the Jets, so let's hope we're not wrong. I don't know if we both. When's the last time we both picked for the Jets, or when we all picked the Jets to win?
I think we all picked before the Atlanta game, didn't we? I think there was a clean sweep for the Jets in that game. We were riding.
Yeah, because Calvin Ridley was out, so that didn't turn out so well. So
we were riding that high. I think this game, kind of for all of the predictions, it's kind of going to live and die by Zach Wilson, and which Zach Wilson kind of shows up.
Which is where it should be, right? It should be there. But it's also, as a Jets fan, with all the narratives about who you picked and all that stuff, you just want it to be, for once, can we just say that we nailed the pick and that we've got the guy, and just can we have someone to really lock in on for the next 5-10 years? I don't know. We'll see. But this is the beginning of that kind of answer that we're going to get. I think now with everything else in place, he comes in and, like we said, it's up to him. So, guys, enjoy the game on Sunday. Hopefully, it's what we hope for. It's the beginning of a new start for the season. The beginning of a new start for the team overall. Let's just hope. At this point, we know where it can go. So let's just hope that it doesn't go there. And enjoy your weekend. And we'll catch you on the next one.